Just make sure you know who your audience is, and then whether you own them or you can find a place to reach them, just connect with them, and then keep that feedback loop going, because that's going to make you really successful.
Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of The Influence Factor by the Influencer Marketing Factory. This is Alessandro Bogliari, CEO and co-founder of the Influencer Marketing Factory, and with me today, Marshall Morris, co-founder of HomeLife Brands. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Amazing. And we met not so long time ago, but I have to say that I loved your energy from day one when we, just briefly met, and I was like, Marshall has to be on the show, on the podcast. I know that you have a lot to say, and you, in the past years, learn a lot, right, from social media and growth hacking and so on.
Yeah.
So I want the audience, right, to learn more about you, yourself, and everything that you built so far. But just like, can you tell a bit more about yourself? Also know that you are like from New York, but now you're living somewhere else. So I would like to know a bit more about like your story.
Got it. Yeah. So so I'll give you the abbreviated, because every entrepreneur has a lot of journey. So I'll give you the abbreviated version. So I grew up in upstate New York, and I joined the military to pay for college. And then 9/11 happened while I was in basic training. So I got deployed with a top secret clearance to New York City to basically support flights, because like we went to the Middle East pretty quick after 9/11, and so someone needed to make sure there wasn't any domestic terror events here again, So I got stationed in New York City to just basically manage supplies that were flying back and forth to the Middle East. After that, I decided, hey, I'm done with the cold weather, and decided like it's time to go to California. So because that was like the dreamland. When you come from New York, there's like New York and LA, right? Like dueling cities. And I'd done New York, and it's like, okay, it's time to do LA. So I packed up a car, some clothes, and then a guitar, and I drove out and just rented a room, just because I knew that once I got there, I'd figure it out, right? Since then, we've built multiple businesses. We exited one in 2015 for over 7 figures, and then this business right here, HomeLife Brands, which we're in now, runs multiple e-commerce businesses and media businesses under one brand, and we're an 8-figure business with 70 employees. So it's a long shot from a kid in a car driving across country.
Amazing, fantastic. And is there anything that you miss apart from the cold weather? No one likes that. But is there anything that you are missing nowadays from New York State compared to California?
They have different energy. You can tell people from different places. I miss the pizza. I mean, if you want to get down to it, and the bagels, grew up on that East Coast bread. They're both so different. The one thing about California, though, is it tends to be more of we have sunshine year round, Southern California.
Yeah.
So our work culture tends to be a little bit different. Like in New York, I mean, it was hard charging until you had a snow day, then you get to breathe kind of. California has a different, because we don't have snow days, we have sunshine, and rain hasn't happened that often. So our work days and the way we work it here, it tends to be a little more fluid, meaning like we tend to have 4.5-day weeks, like we're basically, once you're halfway into a Friday here, you're like in the weekend, you know what I mean? And so in New York, it was like every single hour was precious, because it was like, it's going to snow or there's an event, right? Or like, but here it's like, it's always warm. So what I do really enjoy is I enjoy how fluid the work day is here in California. Like everyone's pretty casual. Everyone's enjoying the weather all the time. In New York, we were definitely had more of a sprint. We had, whenever you got that time off, like the snow day or like whatever, you really, really enjoyed it. So they both were different, but I think pizza and fall are the two things that I hear people talk about the most that they miss, like the fall weather and then just good pizza.
It makes sense. Hey, I mean, I'm Italian, so for me, pizza, like we could do an episode just about, food, like we're gonna do one dedicated just to 12 questions about food. But and yeah, just these days that we're recording, I'm actually in California, and yeah, I definitely can see the different, let's say, the flow and approach to work and the people. It's absolutely two different worlds again, but I can see that you can learn right from different angles and different approaches. So I like that. And so getting back to, again, your business, right? You briefly, before just said and mentioned something, but can you just say a bit more like how it started, why did you started it? Did it start in your mind be like, okay, it's gonna be this big and we're gonna get into numbers later, or was it like an experiment? Like, can you tell me more like how everything started?
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't. It was a complete experiment. I don't think we ever thought. I like really don't think we ever sat down and framed it up like, hey, let's build a business that'll do um, tens and tens of millions of revenue per year, with all these employees at all. Like that was not the genesis. It was more of like trying to solve a problem that we had then, which was, well, like we don't want to work for other people. Like we want to kind of build our own thing and have control our own destiny. That's the first part, right? Like we wanted something different. My business partner then, he was driving, 4 hours a day in traffic, and if you know anywhere in traffic, whether it's New York or California or whatever, like that gets exhausting, right? I think at that point in time, I added it up. It was like I was spending 30 hours a month driving, and I was just like that was a fundamental component that was like, I don't want to do this anymore, right?
Mhm.
But you need a business. So really where it started was we was really experimenting. So like you'll see this a lot nowadays too. This is what we were doing, is just learning social when it was really young, trying to figure out like the news. Facebook was newer then. Really just trying to experiment with things to figure out, can we make money somehow, right? Like what skill sets do we need to learn? How do we build communities? Like all these things Facebook was starting to show us that we could do. We started really really early. And so when you're looking at an audience, you have to serve an audience. You have to find someone you can serve in order to be successful. Like you got to do something for somebody, right? So we were testing things, meaning we were like building Facebook pages really early and testing communities of people and seeing who responds the most, and to whether it be content, whether we wrote articles or whether it be products. Like because we would early in the days we'd say, hey, this is a cool product, like they do on TikTok now, and people would be like, oh, cool, and it would go viral when you buy it, right? Like that's not a new concept. That's just it's new on TikTok or newer. But Facebook, we did that back in the day too. So we were just testing. And so we fell into this market that was just so responsive and so excited. And that was the pet market. It was just people just love their animals. Like just, it just went bananas. And so that was a clear indicator, like there's something there. So at that, we actually started building it, and it was pretty successful pretty quickly, doing a couple $1,000,000 a year in revenue, maybe. And someone came to my partner and I was like, hey, I want to buy this from you guys. So and I was like, and then at that point in time, we had to make a decision. Like, hey, is this going to be actually going to build this thing? Like,
Mhm.
or is this going to be a hobby that we sell off? Right? Is it going to become a business or be a hobby? And we both sat down and we wrote down what we wanted. And one of the things I remember writing was like, we want to basically put our kids through college with whatever we're doing. Like we want it to be meaningful from a life perspective, not just like a blip, like one thing on the radar. We wanted it to be bigger than it was. So we decided we're going to keep it. So we kept it, and we're like, okay, well, now that we've committed to this thing, because before it was an experiment that made money,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, we have to make this a business so that we can sustain it long term, reinvest in it, put wealth away for ourselves, right? Like we got to build something that we can actually, create some predictability for families if we want to grow families in this, because we both started having kids and all of that. And so we said, okay, so we started just building the framework of a business, trying to figure out what we're going to offer, what solutions we're going to offer the market, what we're going to problem solve for the consumer. And it started by, we really started writing articles about topics. So we want to become a thought leader in the space. And because when you can write content that people read, you instantly become validated by the reader, especially if it's something they're looking for. So if I'm looking for the best XYZ and you provide the best way to figure out what the best XYZ is, like instantly there's trust built because I'm consuming content that you've created, right, about that topic. And you're helping me in that journey. We did that for pets. And so people start asking tons of questions like, hey, where do I get this? Where do I get that? How do I do this? How do I do that? And then that was like, okay, we're solving the problem. We're teaching them where to go to get stuff, and they're going to get it. Let's build the thing they get, right? Let's actually build the end product, because we're already sending them all over here to buy this thing because it solves the problem. Like, let's be part of the solution, not only in education, but also in the physical product. And then that's when we really launched our ecom. And it started with just trying to asking our community, like, hey, what do you want? What are you looking for? And looking at what they're already buying, and then starting with building that and offering it. And then that was really the genesis of how the business really scaled. because it went from doing a few million to doing, this year we'll do over 20 million. And like that all comes from that, like moving from just creating content and building community to actually offering a product.
Yeah, that's fantastic. First of all, congratulations on that. Has been, I guess, a nice, interesting journey, and that is still continuing. So, and I will ask you later more about, what does also mean to scale, right, a business and making different numbers, because going from 0 to 1, it's something; from 1 to 5, it's something else; 5 to 10, it's not just doing more. Everything changes, right, in terms of workflow, in terms of structure, in terms of payments, cash flow, and so on, right? But you mentioned, when we met, that you have like a big, like sort of like the largest, right, portfolio of social media pages, right? And I would like to learn more about that, because you said you started with like articles, right? Understanding what people wanted to see. They were asking questions, right? You were solving either a problem or you were answering questions, and and then you were, I guess, driving traffic, right, to maybe an item on an e-commerce page and so on, right? But these, again, nowadays people know with TikTok and everything, but like we're talking about what, like 8 years ago, when you started, right? Stuff like that. And it was a bit different, right? It was still at the beginning. So first of all, how many pages do you own slash manage? And I would like also to know, how do you manage them, because I'm pretty sure that it's quite interesting also on that.
Yeah. So I think right now we have about 100 pages. We call them pages. Like, so we have social accounts across all social media,
Mhm.
right? So we have stuff on Twitter, we have stuff on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, like you name it. We built a portfolio of places on social to basically syndicate content about pets, right? And that's where we engage people one on one. Is kind of in that platform wherever they're doing that, right? So basically, like one big component of that is, so we have 100 pages. We have probably 40 million followers across all those accounts, right?
Wow.
And one the way we manage that right now is we got to the point where we could not manage it ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like we couldn't manage it one on one, and we even couldn't manage it with the U.S. team because it was so substantial.
Mhm.
So we had to accept that, like we we had to accept that, like there has to be an MVP, like there has to be a minimum form of management
Mhm.
at that scale that we had to be okay with. Meaning, like not every page is going to get 100% of love, or not every asset's going to get like the same love if you had one, right? You have so many, but we could get them all to basically work together to help drive the business forward. So we built a team overseas, and so we actually have a team of about 15 people overseas uh, that basically take all the content we create, take the model we have, and they execute it kind of on a daily basis.
Wow. Okay, it makes sense. But so now you having these all this support, right, to managing them. But how did you actually made it from the beginning? Because again, a lot of people have that sort of problem, right? That it's difficult to go from 0 to 1. So I wanted to ask you, is there any like growth hacking techniques and tactics that you find out that work well for you, and both for the digital world, right, but also for the physical products, right? Because some of it is to run things digitally that don't have like logistics, that you don't need a storage, right? So growth hacking for digital is something, but then you need also growth hacking for the physical items, right? So is there anything that top of your mind make like clicked and made a difference in your journey so far?
Yeah, so I think so really where it comes down to is like when you're building anything, whether it be a digital asset, and I actually consult and coach guys who are building digital asset businesses just to help them move their journey. It all comes down to like you got to find an audience somewhere. Like
Mhm.
that's where you build authority, and that's actually how you test your product. So it's like a lot of times people they'll start with the product. So they'll say, "Hey, I made this digital book, I made this course, I made this guide. All right, now I got to go sell it, right?" And that's really difficult to do. The one thing that one thing that I recommend though is actually to start with. So say you can build that, but like instead of that being the first thing you do, is really build an audience in the topic on the platform that resonates with them, that you want to lean into, and learn exactly what they need and what they want from you before you build it, right? Because it may be the same thing, but usually it's not. Like, so here's an example. There's tons of like emerging communities all across the internet, right? There's some that are exploding on Reddit, for example, right? Where it's like there's a niche and it's like whatever. Now, if that's the niche you want to go into, find where people already are, because like the first thing is trying to make a new community from zero is extremely difficult. It's the cold start problem, right? It's so difficult. Not impossible, but it costs you now. It's more and more expensive. So we try to growth hack communities that exist in a positive way. So like, so say for example, you're doing something on, I'm just going to make this up, like you're making rockets, right? Or something, or you're writing a guide on how to build a rocket or something. I think about that. And so like, you're going to go to where, well, like, do you build a community in a place where you are about that? Well, that may not be where your community is, right? So like, you want to look at like the major platforms, and usually you're talking about Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Reddit, those, and maybe even Medium too, like as a community. Figure out where people already are getting together and having these conversations. And then that's where you kind of learn to insert yourself into that dialogue, like A, by being part of the community, learning what people want, right? B, you're also going to build a rapport with that community. So when it is time to launch the thing you want to launch, right, you already have an affinity with people that your end user, your end customer, right? So what I always tell people is you want to build the community first, or at least live where your community already exists first before you start building products, because the community will tell you what they want and what they don't want pretty quickly. And so spending all that time trying to build something you think is cool or you think works, most of the time we end up with, that's usually, we usually end up refining that variation or refining into multiple variations later. The closer you can build to your audience, the more success you're going to have. And I'll give you an example. I have a friend of mine that I'm coaching who does, he has ebooks and guides for things. Some of it is around like mental health, things like that. And he built an Instagram first. Okay. So built the Instagram first. Then he built a guide based on what people were asking, right? And that guide has done $40,000 in the last 30 days. Like just boom, right? But he spent the time building a community first to better understand, what they needed. So, and then he could bring that to them. So for us, we always either build or acquire communities first, and then we learn what they want, and then we build products for them. So I think you don't have to own it. You don't have to have the biggest following on TikTok. You don't have the biggest following on Instagram or Facebook. You don't at all. You just need to have an audience that's somewhere that you can speak into. So like whether they're collected on Instagram, whether they're, somewhere else, you just want to be a part of that dialogue. I think that Twitter's another great place too. I think I met so many awesome creators in the same way, but you have to figure that out. So the growth hack is to figure out where people are first, even if you can't own that community. And then you're going to use that community to further validate your product, to further validate what you want to do, what you want to build, like those kind of things. So we're always community first. Like that's the first thing. Can we get a community around it? Does one exist, or can we build one? Like that's the first question.
And nowadays, to be honest, like maybe I saw it, most probably there are like chief community officer, right? Every company out there, even if we are not necessarily like community based, but they are understanding that even in the B2B, in the platforms, in the SaaS, you want to have the community first, right? And getting the feedback from them and building new features all on their feedbacks, because I'm pretty sure like you are building things that people want, not the opposite, like, just going out with somebody like hoping, right? Like spray and pray type of technique, like be like, hey, we built 20 of these. We hope you like them, right? Instead, it's common sense, right? To go out and ask it. But I'm noticing that a lot of new platform, new apps, they build things without asking to people, do you actually need this? Right? Or do you like this? Right? So that is makes sense. And I'm also wondering, what was the scrappiest things that you made the first days of your business? Is there anything that now you look back and you're like, either like, I wouldn't do it again, or wow, that was like wild, but much needed now? Is there anything, any story that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think so. Our main focus is like validate, right? Whether the product, whether the offering, or whether it like that the audience even wants something, So early on, our websites were so terrible. Like we had a .com, but it was like 5 words. Like right now one of our main brands is iHeartDogs.com, like iHeartDogs.com. The first website we had literally was I love my dog site.com. And it was like just a pre-market validation. It was like the ugliest website. Like I couldn't even spell it to people because it was like the I love my dog site.com. And so I remember it was like one of the people were like, well, man, how are you like you don't, because people spend so much time on a website, right? Like so much time and so much money. And we just whipped it, like WP themes, bam, WordPress, boom, 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 domain. And then like while they're trying to build their website, we were doing hundreds of thousands of revenue, right? And so like for me early on, we bootstrapped everything. We still do a lot, but like development is an area where we always kind of hacked it. You know, we always kind of like duct tape the back end of it together. Because that was such a commitment, and consumers, what they want and what they need changes so much, right? We'd also heard horror stories of people who paid so much money. We've all heard this, to build something, and then all of a sudden they're stuck because they can't fix it, or like, you know. And we're like, look, if we got to take $1 and turn it into $1.50 or $2, we've got to spend that on marketing and product. Like that's like that has to go there. So the other stuff we're just going to figure out. So like we had to learn how to code early on. Like we were bootstrapped, hacking it together. All those things really early. I mean, we even look back and laugh at them like, oh man, like that was like the ugliest website, right? But we could nail the product and the purpose. So like the community, we didn't really care, right? They were there, they could get the product, they wanted it, boom. And it wasn't to the ugly. We made it so that it was legit enough, right? We didn't feel like a scam, but it was definitely like from a UX designer's perspective, they would have had a heart attack. Like,
you know what I mean? I can see yourself going on Stack Overflow by yourself and copy paste there, right? Like, you know, like asking to the community, these are CSS, like, you know, it's not showing like on me out, you downvote and upvotes, and you know, people just hating on you because you're not, you know, that good in doing that. But like, hey, actually, I'm here to ask a question, so I feel you on that. So did you learn coding yourself something like, or at least maybe markup languages like HTML, CSS?
Yeah, we don't do, so really, we really is WordPress, and then WordPress themes are our friends. So we learned enough to be able to go in there and like pull stuff out, and you know, just enough to get in trouble. Our first hire, actually, besides customer support, because we really need help with customers, was our next leadership hire was definitely someone who had tech like background, like new, because we're like selling online, and it's just dangerous when we're in there updating code like ourselves, you know.
Yeah. I can see that, like just yourself going there and maybe breaking one line of a code because of a comma, all the business proof is gone, you know. So
totally, like you just break the store, and then it's like, where's the revenue? That's definitely one of the big things, I think. So all of our stuff really was really ugly, like really ugly. We laugh about it, but I think that there's this duality. It's like when you provide enough value, you can get a little bit of grace in certain areas, right? If you have a product that's just so good, or a solution that's so well fitted for an audience, you can get away with a little bit more. You know, it doesn't like. So I always tell entrepreneurs, like, where are you spending your money? Usually they'll reach out to me. Like if I do some coaching, one-on-one coaching, typically it's like either in the beginning we're like, hey, like this thing's starting to show, has momentum. Like, how do I build the right system? Or B, after they built the wrong system, which is they focused on the wrong things, right? They put all their money into building an app, they put all their money into building a site, and then everything else kind of fell apart, right? Like, yeah, they have a great website, but now no sales are happening, right? So like, what I always say is just, especially when you're validating an idea, you know, don't worry so much about the aesthetics. Like, it's important, but you always get better. Just make sure your offering is killer. If you have a really great offer, digital or physical, I mean, once you have that, then the rest of it can be figured out, right? So I usually try to get people to steer in that direction. So kind of answering your question is, all of our stuff looked pretty ugly in the beginning. It was pretty ugly. We were our own designers, so we like make designer ads. They're so ugly, and maybe that's why they work. People were like, "This can't be real." Like
they're like, "Is this a scam, or like it's putting together 1,000 different colors, different fonts together, and
giant text?"
Like, yeah, I like that. What do you think, guys? Like, yeah, I love it. You know, and maybe only like if you ask it to someone else, was like, guys, if I had to be honest, we were like, this is not the most compelling. Like,
hey, quick break. This podcast is hosted by the Influencer Marketing Factory. We are an influencer marketing agency that helps brands and companies engage with Gen Z and millennials on social media. We take care of influencer identification, storytelling, creativity, negotiation, contracting, campaign management, ROI analysis, in-depth reporting, content boosting, and much, much more. Are you interested in learning more? You can find us at theinfluencermarketingfactory.com, or you can Google the Influencer Marketing Factory.
If you look back, right, and you said that before when it was already like, a couple of millions, right? It was like, okay, this is taking a certain shape. Now you said like you're looking at what, around 20 millions per year. uh, what does it change in a business like that? Like, is there, first of all, is there any difference, or in your type of business, did you just have to, let's say, scale up the business, or did you have to change things from organizational charts, cash flow, going from net 30 to net? I don't know, like, is there anything that you learn your way that you have to completely change in the way you do things in order to, again, make it still efficient and go to the next level?
Great question. I do. I think that there's thresholds where the business really has to be kind of rebuilt because of the amount of complexity. Really. So, and this is some businesses. There's outliers where some guy's doing millions of dollars, one person, and it's a little different. But like for example, SaaS. So they launch a SaaS product. I think there's outliers. I think whether you're selling physical or digital product and you have a team, and you're not bootstrap. I mean, and you're like you're bootstrap, meaning like you're not raising money, because raising money also has its own trajectory. Like you got to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of like principles that you don't apply because you need to show numbers, right? You're building a business, you want to be profitable, you want to be successful, and you can whether you raise money or not, like you want to build a sound business. It's like once you get, it's like 0 to 1 million is one model, like 1 million to 5 is a model, like 5 to 10, and then once you get 10 to 20, it's its own model. So when you're the more money the business is running, typically the more cash flow matters, the more cash management matters. So like once you're 10 million plus, I mean you're having $800,000 to $1 million a month come in revenue, and that's really reading the cash flow game. It's a whole different model. So we brought a CFO on, a fractional CFO he used to work for. He's done a lot of stuff for like what we consider legacy clients, like IBM and Dell. He used to work at those places like that. So he has this really old school framework that works well when you're doing cash management. Because like the way we build businesses now has rapidly changed. The way we manage cash hasn't as much, right? Like, so like you still like you need to have like once you get into that level, it's like you're floating capital somehow. Like someone owes you money, either it comes in the same time or they owe it to you. So you have accounts receivable, right? And you have things you got to pay. They give you terms, you get terms. So there's this whole thing. So like the business really after 10 million, I felt like really shifted into like the cash flow game, which is how can you keep as much cash in the bank and make sure you're managing what you owe and what you're making, right? Like making sure that you're profitable. That was big. Teams, like for example, as someone who's a scrappy founder, when you build teams, at first I think it was really fun. Like, hey, there's people in the room now. Let's do some stuff, As it grows, then they start having, you realize, oh wow, they do have more needs than just me being like high-fiving them, right? Like they need to feel like their job matters. They know what their title is. They know have clarity in what the organization does, what their role does, who their manager is. Like that was a whole learning lesson, right? Because it used to be like, hey dude, let's high five and crush this thing, and then but then it's like, oh wow, no, there's so many more structured things. Then you're like, oh well, we're at a size where we got to have benefits to be competitive, right? Like, it just changes. I think the reason I think also why cash flow matters so much is that the cost of doing business just increases over time. Typically, as you grow, as you add headcount, as you expand your business, your offering. Usually, especially with a product-driven business, right? Because the idea is a product-driven business it usually grows because we're selling more product, right? So that itself is really cash flow. But people, I think the biggest challenge for a founder is a lot of like, I'm more of a visionary kind of creative founder. There are stages in a company where it's really, when I have a co-founder that's the opposite, and that's been a huge advantage because like he's more of he's more of a systems guy. Like he thinks more like in systems. He's our integrator. I'm more of a creative person. So like, sometimes in some seasons of the business, you need a lot of creative juice. You just do. You need a lot more creative input. And there's seasons in the business where you need more of like systems and stability and like just execution, right? Not more ideas. And that balance is always, I think, really tough as you get bigger because um, the organization, especially as you grow, we've been doing things. We've been pretty consistent. Like we've been doing close to 20 million for the past 3 or 4 or 5 years. So like really consistent.
Yeah.
And so over time, you build systems and things like that, but you still need that. But if you look at the cash flow mix, like where our revenue's coming from, it drastically changes every year. Like it's really, so it's like, wow, this year we did this much, this year close to the same, right? Or the same or more. But it's like, whoa, like where it came from completely shifted, right? So that's an example of like, especially building online, things are always changing, platforms are always changing. So you got to have systems and things like that, but you can't lose your entrepreneurial edge, right? And also you can't underestimate how much your business really needs systems too. So it's like that.
It's like your brain, right? Left part, right part.
It's exactly
You have
like
to communicate
that.
together. I totally see you. You need someone that is systematic, because if not, it's chaos and anarchy. But you also want to have that edge, right? Because if not, competition is gonna come like for you, right? And they sometimes maybe have a worse system than you, but they have more energy because they're new in the market, right? And they want just to attack it, right? So absolutely, I see you on that. And is there anything that you learn? So the cash flow, absolutely important. Then you said that you're almost now, or already like 70 people, between the US, also some other overseas. Is there anything that you learned in these past 8 years? Any pieces of advice for anyone that is hiring? And if unfortunately also have to fire, and why that happened?
Yeah. So, I think the workforce has really changed a lot in the past like 36 months, right? We've seen this with COVID and stuff, but before that too. So like we went through both phases. I was just at a CEO summit and it seems like people are pretty split. They're either all remote or they're all on site. It seems like that. Now we're actually completely the middle. So
Okay.
we have half the staff who are shipping and picking and packing and shipping stuff. They're on site because they have to be
Of course,
physically to touch.
yeah.
The rest of the team, some are local, but they work remotely. And then we have a lot of team that we've hired overseas. We will continue hiring outsourced people, most likely, for a few reasons. And that's what we learned. So we brought everyone in house. So we had a remote team first, brought everyone in house, and now we're kind of a hybrid, right?
Okay.
And for us, that's the best balance for a business. One is there's a lot of really smart people out there around the world, and you can find great talent in a lot of different places. And so the challenge I think with the digital business is like you're paying taxes where you reside, and normally with a business who's physically located, you're limited by people that are geographically available to you, right?
Yes.
And so for a while we kind of had that mindset. We're like, all right, we're building a company. We're here. Oh, I don't know how do we manage that person remotely, and how do we make sure that they're on task, and all those things have been solved. Like all that's been solved. So for us, now we're like, all right, well, like for example, I really don't anticipate local hires for the foreseeable future, like at all. And that just because it has with the economy in Southern California, where we are located, it's very expensive to bring people on.
Yeah, it is.
And so it's one of those things where like, all right, well, if we find the right person though, and they can create a tremendous amount of value and we can justify that, cool. Otherwise, we're going to be open. We're going to be open to like, and so a lot of our business has been built around deliverables versus like time. So like, and that's the best way we felt to manage employees, because it's like, if you can get stuff done, like if you get your job done, like honestly, like I don't care, how you manage your day, as long as stuff gets done when it needs to be done and you're delivering with excellence. So it's like, right. So it's like, if you're home, you're crushing it, and you spend 3 hours in the morning and your team knows it, and 3 hours here, whatever, and it fits your lifestyle. Fantastic. Like, I don't want to have to micromanage anyone, you know what I mean? Where it's like, hey, did you put your time in? Did you get your hours in? Like, so we really give people a lot of freedom there. Obviously, if you're in the warehouse, they have different shifts and things, but we try to accommodate it that same way the best we can, right? Like, do you want to come in early? Do you want to come in late? Like, what's your flow? Like that kind of thing. But ultimately, the biggest thing I think is with hiring, a lot of the lessons have come around people. People are the biggest challenge, because they can be your biggest asset or your biggest liability in a way, right? But for us, I think that the world is open for business. Like, I think that's the coolest thing that's really come out of COVID, is that like you can find amazing talent, and anywhere, and you just got to be okay with it. So there's a lot of guys I meet still, which surprises me, because I think in our world, people are like, oh, remote, that's what you do. Like you can do remote people. There's still a lot of businesses that have a really hard time with that. But I think that'll change. So for us, really, it's been like we've learned both. We've had both fully on the ground, payroll in-house, in an office, in meetings all the time, and then the remote, and then both. And I think that the hybrid is really one of the most beneficial models because the people that you need to get in, like we'll fly people in, sit down in a room, knock it out, spend a week, we go off and execute. So I think that we're really seeing the world move to that in the businesses that can, and for us, that's the easiest life component. Like that makes life easier. When we were at a point with people where what we found is that you tend to over meeting. Like when you're on site, when you're there together, you tend to have way too many meetings and way too many like you're not even getting any work done. It's like
it's mostly one meeting after the other, right? And it's like, okay, but what did the work today? Like no time.
Yeah. Yep. So I think that we've learned that one of the most important things with people, I would say, for those who are running companies or looking, is the framework. So we use what's called EOS or Pinnacle. It's basically an operating system that helps you. It gives you a roadmap to run your business. Like here's how you set up your organization chart, and like here's the leadership structure, and like things that you kind of either someone teaches you or you just fall into. Now we just kind of found ourselves there, and there's a lot of issues. But when we standardized it and created a system. And followed kind of a map of like success, like people have done it like this for a long time for a reason, kind of thing. Everything from like documenting stuff to like having an org chart correctly, all this stuff. It really did change the personnel component of it. Like it made the hiring a lot easier. It made accountability a lot easier. Those type of things. So early on, and I'll say, and I guess the one thing early on I'll say is that we really didn't. As an owner, I didn't care about roles or earlier on per se, right? Because like no matter what you call me, like I'm in the seat. We didn't understand the power of titles or the gravity of titles for people really early on. So it'd be like, oh, well, what title do you want? Cool, that's great. You can have that one, right? Because like, but it creates so many issues. So I would say anyone starting up or wherever they are, like as you're team building, really be intentional about how you set up your organization in your field, like the right roles. And then also have the right titles because even though you may not think giving a higher title means anything, it will mean something, even if it doesn't now, right? So like you want to really be like, because people's identity get wrapped up in that. So you really want to be, when you build your organization, what we found is like whether they're local or whatever, you want to have the titles correct. That's a big one.
Totally. And also something that I noticed, to be honest, coming myself from Europe, the titles between Europe, for example, the US and the rest of the world, different other countries, they have different meanings, to be honest. And they also have different power, like, in the company. So someone that could be like a head of compared to a director in Europe, like, again, they sometimes in a maybe smaller startup when they start, like, as you said, they really have no meaning because you're giving it away like it's candies, right? But as you expand, you start realizing that like, oh, wow, actually that means a lot because I didn't think that maybe this person comes from, again, this other country. And that in that country, that title is the most important thing in our organization. While in the US, I'm noticing, for example, a lot of, in the US, there is a lot of VP, for example, and some other titles, while in Europe, we have like maybe more like GM, like, so it changes. And I think that I do agree with you. At the beginning, you don't think about it too much because like, whatever. But then as you start scaling up, if you don't fix it in time, can become a bit problematic, right?
Yeah, that's a big one. I think that's one that we really overlook because it creates dynamic. Like as you're trying to build this thing and trying to keep this thing alive and all of that, it creates an undercurrent against what you're doing. Because like ultimately, that person who gets that title is going to Google like what they're paid in the market, and try to figure out, oh wow, okay, well that's a great title. I'm glad I have it now. And now that I need the pay to come with it, when you were just thinking, hey, I like you, like you're doing a great job. Let me give you a little title, or whatever. So you can avoid a lot of heartburn just by being aware of that when you set it up.
This is one of those things, I guess, that you don't become an entrepreneur, right? It's one of those things that really you don't think about it till I think you play with that, right? And then you get on that, and that's why I wanted to talk entrepreneur to entrepreneur because it's, I think we can again learn so much from these type of things. And I wanted to have this conversation with you because I also want to have a lot of other people that maybe are willing, like they want to start a company, to and that's my big advice. And I don't know if you agree with that, but like from the beginning, play a bit less like the game of being an entrepreneur. Like, I'm going to do all these Google sheet with all these forecasts and numbers, right? Play maybe more about, as you said, the product has to be good, right? Finding the right people and so on. And then only once you get to the right shape, start looking at things like titles and so on. But thinking twice about everything, because you might, again, like, just giving away things because you want to go faster without losing time. But then could cost twice, if not more, right? Triple of that, right? In time.
It's totally true. Yeah, and it feels like you're going slower. So it feels like by doing taking the time to do these things when you're growing, especially fast or catching into market, but actually you're just priming yourself to go faster later. It
makes sense. And okay, so changing completely subject, I wanted to know something that might be both interesting and funny about your industry, right? So mostly pets industry, right? All the time, whenever I can, I ask statistics, numbers, metrics, anything like that from any guest. So we had, guests from, reporters and marketers and content creators and people that SaaS businesses. And each of them, they have something that like either blew my mind or I didn't know. So I wanted to ask you a couple of metrics that you can share with us. One is like, let's call it a serious metric, right? Something that people don't know about your business. It could be anything. And then a funny one, again, you are into the pets industry, so I'm pretty sure that you have something like, interesting. So what's the two that come up to your mind?
Yeah, the serious ones, the ones the most is actually the amount of dogs in the US is pretty substantial from a global perspective. So there's 78 million dogs in the United States, 78 million. So like,
wow.
To give you an example, like if you follow soccer, or if you follow baseball, there's about 45 million tickets a year sold to those games in the U.S. So like it's like you could fill every single sports stadium, for like every baseball stadium, with a dog on each seat, almost twice over. That's how many dogs there are.
And sorry, but I'm envisioning that. Like I'm just envisioning a place with like 70 millions of like, wow, okay, crazy.
And then on top of that, you have 58 million cats. So like the amount, like by the amount, the volume is actually really substantial. In fact, there is one state though that takes the cake. Like, there's actually one state where 70% of people or more have a dog. Can you guess what state that is? It's Wyoming.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
You tend to find like more animals when you have more space, basically. I mean, per person. So yeah, 71% of people there actually own dogs.
Wow. I'm still thinking about the number. Like in my mind, it's huge.
It's a huge market. That's why they say it's recession proof. It just depends what category you're in, but people don't stop buying food for their pets, right? Ever.
Yeah. And of course, and you want to spoil them, right? You want to, right, to have them like a great life. And back in the day, it was like a dog life, and nowadays, like I would love to, switch with my dog sometimes, just living their life for a week, Amazing. Okay.
On that note too, there's some statistics I thought you'd find pretty funny that I always laugh. So in the US, 50% of households buy their dog a Christmas gift. 50%.
Okay.
In the UK, it's 81%. So they really
I see
love
that.
it.
I'm one of those people, guilty. So I can totally see that. Why? Yes, it makes sense. Wow. And is it like what type of like? Do you know? Like, is it like a edible? Is it like a
or a treat typically?
Okay.
Like for sense. Them, right? Like for them, we actually get a lot of dopamine, but when we give gifts to our dogs, our brains actually are wired to kick dopamine to us just when we see them happy. Like there's a connection there. So like that's why people love to treat their dog, because they love the dopamine hit really they get of their dog getting something that they're excited about,
I know, totally.
Crazy psychology. Yeah, and actually, I'll throw another one at you because I've always found this is pretty fascinating. They did this study of elderly people, basically 70 plus, that had dogs, and they found that the folks are over 70 that had dogs went to the doctor 30% less than the people that didn't. It's like a pretty substantial swing. It's not like 1 or 2%. It's like 30%, like 1/3 less. Yeah.
Okay. I love the science here. Also, like, it's more than just like a cute video online, but actually can help. Wow.
That's pretty powerful. Like that's the best part. It's pretty. The psychology with pets is incredible. If you ever want to have a really fun rabbit hole, like just start Googling that. It's like just crazy the studies they've done. We did I'll leave one more for you. I have a ton of these, by the way, because this is all we do. Is that we did a study. We actually did a survey of, I think, 5,000 dog owners. We found that 59% of them kiss their dog more than they do their significant other.
Hey, so
you can see that, right? Yeah.
I love 59%. You said. Wow, that's funny, interesting, and to be honest, like I'm seeing a lot of TikTok videos with couples and be like, they either do like, do you love mom or dad more? And I can see why, like, sometimes you give more kisses to your dog than sometimes the spouse, because at the end of the day, like you can be like, fighting maybe with your partner, but with a dog after a couple of minutes it's over, right? So so I can see why. That's amazing. And that is a survey that you run yourself?
Yeah, we do a lot of market data. Remember, like I said in the beginning, we take communities, we ask them, we learn as much as we can about them. So we ask them, facts, and we survey them, things like that. And so actually, this is one point that I tell people a lot that I coach. And it's like this: build a business in a place you want to be. Because like I've had businesses I've worked on where we built businesses in certain sectors, like the healthcare sector, that are just not fun. It's not fun. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's brutal. It's like a blood sport, right? And like, there's a place for that, I think, ultimately. But like, if your purpose is to build a business to give you freedom to enjoy what you're doing, like that was like, hey, I want to make money, and I really want to love what I'm doing. Like, I want to be part of that. And like, where you build is important. So like, building the pet space, even though it's a business and there's economics that are difficult, like the businesses, at the end of the day, you're really in a fun world, So I think that helps us a lot with like just whenever we have bad months or when things happen in business, like those challenges. When you're in a space you're like that you enjoy being in, it really does help your journey, like as you're building. Absolutely. Right?
It makes a huge difference. I can see that, like either if you do that or like I was talking with someone that was like, yeah, I mean like in the was like the candy business. I was like, at the end of the day, just take like a chocolate bar. It's everything is better, like with that. So it does make sense. It does make sense. And so to start wrapping up, I have like a super quick Q&A session. Just tell me, like, can be even one word as an answer, okay? I just want to do it super quickly. So top of your mind, whatever comes out, okay? That's it. It's a few of them. So again, don't overthink it. I just want to see something super that comes from you. So first one, I just chose it because you're in the pets. So this is easy. But dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Like it. If you were a superhero, what power would you want to have?
Oh wow, that's a good one. What did Popeye have? Did you have Popeye in Europe?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
I guess muscles on demand. Is that what he was?
Okay, I like it. Yeah. It was like with the spinach, right?
Yeah, that was always fighting a bad guy. Yep, always figured it out. Yep.
Love it. Favorite movie?
Oh man, I would say Blade. You remember Blade?
Nice one. Okay, so you won 10 million at the lottery, so just cash on you. First thing that you buy.
Oh, it's funny. I thought of this. So the first thing I do is actually I'm making every one of my employees a millionaire. That's the first thing we're doing. Like everyone who works for me is a millionaire. The second thing is I'm just going to stick it in the bank and then go to work the next day if they show up.
If they show up, but yeah, I don't know about that. Let's see if that happens. But I like the gesture there and the nice thought. Favorite food?
Oh man, I would say pizza, New York pizza.
Love it. And favorite drink?
Say probably. This changes a lot. I don't think you can beat a good glass of wine. I don't think you can.
Absolutely, especially. I mean, with the pizza, you can do it maybe with the beer, but I was trying, to put them together. But and then would you either like be able to breathe underwater or fly?
Oh, fly for sure.
And the last two, books or movies?
Books.
And on that, book smarts or street smart?
Street smart.
Love it. That's everything for me. Like I wanted just to finish on a note and getting something from you like super quickly, because again, sometimes people can just get the best out of not just super complex questions, but at the end of the day, you look in the mirror and be like, okay, answer these things. Maybe they say something about myself, right? Is there anything else that I didn't ask you, or something that you wanted to share with the audience today?
No, actually, I think that really the recap of it was if you're going to build a business, you're building it. Just make sure you know who your audience is, and then whether you own them or you can find a place to reach them, just connect with them, and then keep that feedback loop going, because that's going to make you really successful.
Love it. Thank you so much, Marshall. Yeah. This was really, really fun, really insightful. So thank you so much for joining me today. And for everyone else, this was The Influence Factor by the Influencer Marketing Factory, and I'll see you in the next episode.